Okay, the computer has started. Uh, First of all, my name is Kay, and I am an alcoholic, and I want to thank Elizabeth very much. She's acts many times like my manager, uh, and 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 getting me out to meetings, and it's really necessary because in my heart of hearts, I'm a very shy person. Uh, my name is Kay. I am an alcoholic. I'm 31 years sober. The only thing important about that is that when I was 5 years sober, my life fell apart. And I was at that point ready to call it quits. I decided if I get sober for this, I why wouldn't anyone want to get sober for this? And so I was continuing to go to AA meetings and planning my way out. Um, I have to tell you also, because that is part of my story, that the reason why I was that way is I did the minimum that needed to be done. I wanted to have an okay recovery. I didn't figure I would be, some superstar in AA. I just, as far as I was concerned, what you want me to do, I'll do it. It was like if it's in the book and I'm supposed to read it, fine, I'll read it. I followed my sponsor's direction and did what she told me to do and went to the meetings she told me to go to. And most of the time, the meetings bored me to tears. She wanted me to go to only women's meetings. And for the life of me, I couldn't figure out why listening to women complaining about their husbands was going to keep me sober. And so I figured really what it was kind of like penance, kind of like a convicted felon. When he gets out of prison, he's got to see his, he has to go back and see the people in prison. He's got to do all these special things and he's got to suffer a little bit. And so that's really how I saw AA. So it was my own fault. I did it as minimum as I could. And it brought me to the point of despair at 5 years sober. And at the same time, my sponsor left AA to join a Christian recovery movement. And she said, if I wanted to, I could go with her to that. And I said, thank you very much, but I'm just not that into God, so I decided to just kind of stay with my with AA. And then when my life fell apart, I thought, well, this is crazy. So I was planning to commit suicide. And so what I did a real alcoholic thing. I doubled up on my meetings. Did I double up on my meetings to get an answer? Absolutely not. I doubled up on my meetings so when I woke up dead, everyone will say, oh my goodness, and she had such a good program. Once again, it was about saving my face so I looked good. I didn't care whether or not I was dead. As a matter of fact, I could see death as the only way to get out. And then I connected with a man that I had known for 17 years. And he said, well, if you want to start working with me, he said, we need to go through the steps. And I said, have you not been listening? I have completed the steps. He said, well, now that's interesting because as far as I'm concerned, he said, it says in our book, the 12 steps are a group of principles, spiritual in their nature, which if practiced as a way of life, not completed. And I thought, oh, well, he said, it seems to me that you have not practiced these principles in your life. And he said, do you even know what the principles are? And I said, sure, there's a list of them. I got it right here. Honesty, blah, 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 blah. And he said, that's kind of like the Girl Scout pledge, isn't it? He said, how do you do something to change your life? And I said, I don't even know that my life needs changing. I've a good enough recovery. He said, no, you don't have a good enough recovery. And he said, he said, let's start with this first step. And I said, well, yeah, I'm powerless over alcohol. Yeah, well, of course. I said, my life isn't unmanageable. And he said, really? And he said, well, let me ask you a question. Is your life comfortable? And I said, no. He said, oh, so your life is unbearable. Let me tell you why your life is unbearable. Your life is unbearable because your inner life is unmanageable. He said, you have a self-talking mind. It never stops shutting up. It's cruel to you and to anyone else around. He said, that's why your life is unbearable. That's why your life is unmanageable. You keep listening to your inner voice. You think you're thinking when you haven't been thinking for decades. You think you're using your mind, and that's just simply wrong. Your mind has been using you. And I said, well, oh, okay, well, all right. So he said, there's a big difference between your living and your life. He said, your living is you have a job, you don't have a job. Yeah, you're married or you're not. He said, you're healthy or you're sick. Those are all living issues. Your life is your inner peace. It's that inner peace at night. He said, it's not what people tell you during the day that affects you. It's what you whisper to yourself at night, just before you go to sleep, that has the power to destroy your life. And so I began on the 12 steps, and I began to see that what I had to realize is that my life is unmanageable, that I was powerless. What am I powerless over? I'm powerless over winning an argument with Kate. I may win an argument with you, but I certainly can't win an argument with me. And so what I had to do is surrender the self-talking. I had to surrender the mind. Now, there's a difference between the brain and the mind. The brain is just a poor little organ that transmits a stimulus from one cell to another. It doesn't stop in the middle and say, that's the most ridiculous idea I have ever heard. I refuse to transmit it. No, it has to transmit it. He said, the mind is what you built up with the rules that you made, with the tapes that you remember growing up. And he said, it hasn't changed in decades, and you're reviewing that over and over and over again. And he said, so you surrender that, and now you have to start building up a new mind. The new mind is really just a whole bunch of different neuro synapses in the brain. That's all this is. And what I had to realize that the second step that I really didn't like very much, I said, I believe in God. I mean, after all, I was raised Catholic, and he said, I don't want you to believe in God. I want you to believe that there is a power greater than you that can restore you to sanity. I want you to try to start talking to that God. And he said, and eventually you'll learn how to pray. And I said, excuse me, I had 15 years of Catholic education. And he said, I don't care how much education you have. He said, spirituality is the gift from God, and religion is what they teach you. He said, so we're talking about a spiritual program of recovery. And he said, what you really have to understand is when you're talking about praying, there's two parts to prayer. There's the petition, and then there's the action. You can't say, oh God, I really want a pizza. Oh God, I really want a pizza. And then go back into bed and cover up and expect when you woke up from your nap that there'd be a pizza there. He said, you have to meet God halfway. You have to do the action that really shows that you're really intent on getting a piece of pizza. It's the same thing with the 12 steps. He said, when we talk about God, he said, we need to talk about life. And he said, you obviously don't know when life began. And I said, you know what? You're a retired attorney. I am a registered nurse. I know when life began. He said, no, you don't. He said, life begins when an ova and a sperm and a molecule of God unite. And life ends when the ova and sperm disjoin and that molecule of God goes back to God. He said that molecule of God is within you. That molecule of God has all your talents, has all your dreams. That molecule of God is what gave you the guidance to go into nursing school in the first place. That molecule of God is what helps you when you're at work. And he said, but you've been ignoring that molecule of God for your life. And he said, that's what you need to learn how to connect to. So slowly but surely, I started talking to that inner God inside. And at first it was confusing. So I thought, okay, I'm going to start talking to not K. Because if I spoke to not K, it was really clear I wasn't self-talking. And I found that I felt a sense of peace, sense of peace and a sense of ease. And when I would meet people who were harming me or mean to me or something, I would just stop and say, God, will you listen to what they're saying? Because I don't want to respond the way I normally would respond. It's kind of like this. One day, one of the nurses from the surgery department comes down to my department. I was working a step down open heart unit. And she said, Kay, where did you get your nursing license? In a Cracker Jacks box? Well, I really wanted to respond. Instead, I just said, God, you need to listen to her. And when she's done, you need to tell me what to say to her. Well, while she's going on telling me all kinds of nasty things about me, she was saying it very loud at the nurse's station. And the other nurses just kind of stopped and watched this going on. And then all of a sudden she said to me, why are you smiling? Well, why I was smiling is I was talking to God and I was saying, God, she is so lucky, and she doesn't even know how lucky she is that I've already started working with Ted and he's told me what to do when this happens. And I just said, well, you wouldn't understand. And she stamped her feet like she was 2 years old and she left the nurse's station. And, I just kind of looked around and the nurses, some of them started clapping because they knew where it could have gone instead. So I had to start using a power that wasn't K. Now in step 3, the thing is, I've seen how God is helping me and I see what happened when I was trying to do everything. So am I willing to have God take the job all the time? Well, yeah, I am. Why? Because I experienced not having God and I experienced God. So step 3 really requires me to have 1 and 2 in my life first. And I had to really experience it. But the interesting thing is about step 3 is I should be able to go right into 11. I'm giving my will and my life over to the care of God. Why don't I just talk to God all the time and walk on water and do all these great things? Well, because there's 2 big obstacles. First obstacle is me, the character I created, the sick alcoholic mind that I created. And the second obstacle is you, everybody I've harmed, everyone that sees me and says, oh my God, there she is. And I get rid of those in steps 4 through 8. And I'm sorry, 4 through 9. And so it really helps a lot. And so I was able to then, with this willingness, go into 4. Well, what's funny about 4 is 4 says I have to have a moral inventory. Okay. But 10 tells me I have to have a personal inventory. So am I taking a personal inventory or a moral inventory? And is this moral inventory about the 7 deadly sins? What is this moral inventory? And my sponsor said, Kay, think of it this way. You need to see the standards of your behavior on a regular basis. You need to do a complete fourth step on it, and we'll go through it one by one by one by one. And as I did this, I was really able to see the truth of my life. And five, the gift with five is it forced me to articulate to my sponsor all kinds of things about me that were just kind of bouncing around in my head that were unclear, like unclear. When I first came into the program, and before I got into the program, I defined myself as an angry woman. Once I took a fifth step with my sponsor, he said, "No wonder why you've not been able to get rid of the anger." He said, you don't have anger. He said, what you are is a fear-based woman who hides behind anger. He said, if you don't see the true nature of your defects, you'll never be able to get rid of them. And then I realized, yeah, he was right. It was totally, when I'm in fear, I was raised inner city Chicago in the 60s. And what I learned is when I would be out in the streets and some bullies would come along and they tried to start picking on me, I learned if I acted crazy and mean, they wouldn't beat me up, because nobody wants to deal with a crazy, mean person, even if it is a little girl. So it really kept me from getting beaten up. And it was quite appropriate in inner city Chicago, but it was totally inappropriate in Woodland Hills, California in 1993. But I didn't realize that that's what I was doing. And so I could then now be able to see that if I'm in fear, what do? I turn to God. I said, God, I'm afraid right now. Can you walk me through this? And God is always saying something like, here, kid, hold my hand. I'll walk you through this. And it really makes all the difference in the world. You know, my sponsor said I needed to see my life, my inner life that I was talking to him about in steps 4 and 5. I see that life as a room with one chair in it. I have the power on who's going to sit in that chair. If I put my boss in the chair, I'm afraid I'm going to lose my job. And then I get resentful of my boss. If I put my boyfriend in the chair, I'm afraid he's going to leave me. So I'm angry with him for flirting, even though I didn't even see him flirt. If I put myself in the chair, well, then I have to manage and control the world. And I'm in fear that you're not going to do it right, and that you won't obey me, and that things will go wrong and I'll be a failure yet again. But I can put my God in the chair. When I put my God in the chair, all is right with the world. All is at peace. And so I view that chair, that room with the chair, a lot when I'm going through times of stress in my life. It's funny. Step 6, when we came to step 6, I thought, now this is kind of interesting, because step 6, you're entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. And I said, Ted, these steps are really kind of silly. Entirely ready. Who is entirely ready? And he said, these steps aren't silly, first of all. Secondly, you can be entirely ready at the moment you want to use the defect. So to be entirely ready to have the defect removed is only in that moment when the attitude wants to come up in your mouth, when the lie wants to come up in your mouth? Are you going to be entirely ready to have God remove it? Because God can't remove it if you're still using it. You got to keep your hands off it and say, God, we both know where I want to go right now, but I don't know what you want me to do. Please take this attitude from me today, right now. And here's how it worked for me. One time I was at work, and a visitor came to the desk, and he said, I was working in a hospital, and he said, which one of you lazy slugs is taking care of my mother today? Well, my God, I thought I was going to have a stroke. I turned around so quickly. I felt like Linda Blair in The Exorcist. And I put my hand on the phone because we've been having trouble with visitors, and I was ready to call security. And all of a sudden, my sponsor's face came in front of me. If not now, Kay, when? When are you going to be entirely ready to let go of that anger? And so I said, okay, God, will you listen to him? And when he's finished talking, tell me what you want me to say. Well, he went on and on for a while, and all of a sudden he stopped. And I swear to you, I heard myself say, if you don't mind, would you please tell me what it is you want me to do for your mother? This man, who was so nasty and so rude, starts crying. I don't know what you can do for my mother. I don't even know what I can do for my mother. My mother brought us here from the old country. She's the only one that keeps the whole family together. We don't know how to survive without her. We don't know what to do. I said, oh, well, I know what you guys can do. I said, as a matter of fact, what you can do for your mother will be just as important healing as any medication I can be giving her. Really? He said, what? I said, well, it's very simple. We're going to go back to the room. I'm going to move the chair over closer to the bed. I want you to hold your mom's hand. And I want you to tell her every funny memory that you have growing up from you and from everyone else in the family, to give her all those memories and tell her about different parties and different things that she said. You go through and you tell her about those memories. I said, what they will do is they will bring some healing juju into her body, so that when I give the medicine, it'll work to heal her. Really? I said, yeah, it will. He said, oh, this is great. You're wonderful. The hospital's great, blah, blah, blah. And I said, well, you've got to do something for me in return. What? I'll do whatever. I said two things. First of all, you need to teach the rest of your family to do the same thing. And you have to promise me, if your mother needs me, you'll come and find me. Oh, yes, I can do that. So we went over there and he did that. And he was happy the rest of the shift and passed it on to the family. And the woman was able to go home, eventually. So it's just interesting how God can take a situation that I was going to make worse by calling security, by just being entirely ready. And so I try to stay entirely ready. That's what helps me. Now, step 7 about the shortcomings. I said, well, this is where I have to become Mother Teresa, isn't it? To my sponsor. He said, no. He said, you're not even going to be close to Mother Teresa, Kay. So don't even try that one. He said, what you can do is watch every time you sell yourself short. I said, excuse me? He said, every time where you could do something that makes you feel so much better, and you let the opportunity pass you by. He said, what happens is that inner resource will guide you to do something, and you'll say, no, I'm too busy. He said, so I want you to kind of develop a watcher that lets you know what you could be doing, what your God is trying to guide you to do. So one day I was in the hospital and I was changing a dressing, and I heard the light from the room next to the patient's room I was in, and it was on for a long time. And I finally finished the dressing and washed my hands and left the room. And I looked down, and that patient's nurse was sitting at the desk, just talking while that light was on. And my thought was, I'm going to go up there and I'm going to yell at her and tell her she needs to answer that light. And then I heard, or you could just answer it yourself. You're going right past the room. Well, but it's not my patient. Do what you want. So I went in and I said, hi, do you have your light on? He said, yeah, I've had it on for a while. I said, well, I was next door for a while. And I said, what can I do for you? He said, I really, really, really need to go to the bathroom. And I said, okay, that's fine. So I got him up and walked him to the bathroom. And of course, he had a patient gown on. So I saw his behind was all red, as it is with patients who are sick. They can get a red behind. And I went back to I said, I'm going to stay in here, but turn on the light anyhow, so I can hear you when you want to go back. So I straightened his bed, and I saw the ointment was there for his redness. And I said, okay, God, and I'll offer to put my ointment on too. And so as I'm walking him back, I said, I know you don't know me very well. I said, but I noticed that your bum is really red. And I said, you got some nice ointment that I'd love to rub on your bum once we get you back in bed and make your bum feel better. And he said, oh, I'd love it. That's good ointment. Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. So I rubbed it on him, and he said, oh, this is great. This is just wonderful. I feel so much better. And I said, you're quite welcome. It was my pleasure. And I left the room and I said, God, thank you. I didn't sell myself short. And then I went to see, he didn't have open heart surgery. I wanted to see why he was with us. Well, he had some mets. He had cancer with some metastases to the area. They were trying to decide whether or not he could go to surgery. And I thought, poor soul, thank you for allowing me to put ointment on him. And he coded and died an hour later. And I felt so lucky that I was able to provide some comfort to a man the last couple of hours he was alive. And I thought, I could have missed this. I really could have missed the opportunity to care for somebody the last couple of hours of their life. And that, to me, is step 7 in my actions and in trying to do that as much as possible. And so that's how I kind of get rid of my attitude, my opinions, and my judgments. And then I get into the next barrier, which is you. And so I have to do step 8, get entirely ready. Oh my God, the last thing I wanted with step 8 is to really make amends. Do I really want to make amends? Especially, I did not want to make an amends to my ex-husband. Absolutely not. I said, I'm probably going to be 8 years on this 8th step because, it just wasn't what I was interested in, being willing to make amends. And he said, well, again, it's another way you're kind of selling yourself short. And I said, oh, really? You want to tell me why? And he said, yeah, it's right in the book. He said, it's not a story for me. This is in the book. He said, in step 8, in page 79, when we find out who gets harmed, yeah, some people get harmed, but he said down here, it says, in many instances, I shall find that the harm done others has not been great. The emotional harm I have done myself has. Very deep, sometimes quite forgotten, damaging emotional conflicts persist below the level of consciousness. At the time of these occurrences, they might actually have given my emotions violent twists and discolored my personality and altered my life for the worse. I thought, wow. I said, that's kind of answers glass in hand. I warped my mind. He said, yeah. He said, if you want to get that freedom, he said, you have to heal what's going on within you. You can't deny that you didn't do him any harm. He said, there's no one on God's green earth that goes through a divorce that hasn't caused someone else the pain. And he said, so start looking at it from that point of view. And once I could see that, it was really easy to be willing to make amends to my ex-husband. It was quite a gift from God to be able to do that. I felt so much better in doing that. In step 9, when I really did it to him, when we were divorcing, he was carrying a gun. And in step 9, I wasn't sure if he was still going to be carrying a gun, but I did left him a voicemail, and I asked him if I could meet him to make an amends. And he didn't pretty much like AA as it was. He said, fine, if that's what you need, we can do it. And what I had to do is I had to write what I was going to say to him. And then I had to run it by my sponsor, because the first several ones that I wrote were very self-centered and selfish. And he'd stop me short. He said, nope, this is about him. You want to help him. And you want to take responsibility for what you did to him. Not, I did it in response to. No, we don't care about that. It's the fact that you did it that was wrong and all wrong. And so what I did is I finally did it to him, with him. And then I said, oh, what I'm planning to do is to change our relationship entirely. I said, I think it's time for us to have a divorce, truly. And I said, instead of the separation, he said, well, do what you want to do. I don't really care. And so I did get my divorce, and it really did make quite a bit of difference. And at this point in time, he has joined a 12-step program for his overeating and reads the 12 and 12 regularly, and occasionally will ask me questions. He'll text me a question, and things have really healed so much since then. And I feel that I have healed, and I've really been able to see that I can't harm anyone for free. So if I harm you, I'm going to warp me, and there's no way I'm going to do that again. And in step 10, that's when I do that personal inventory. Well, what that is watching when nasty habits keep coming back again. Because in fact, what the 12 steps are about is they're about seeing all the nasty habits I built up. I'm not a nasty person. My soul isn't nasty, but I had habits of living that were inappropriate and harmful. And so step 10 is my application of not being that kind of person anymore. For instance, one day I went into work and I was going back and I thought I was going to get my same patients. When I walked in, the night nurse says, "Oh, I'm glad you're here early because it seems like everyone called in. So you're going to have registry nurses and you're going to be in charge." And I just looked, I said, "Is nursing office aware of all the fresh open hearts we have?" And she said, "Yeah." And I said, "Fine." And so I sat down and I started taking report. And during report, she said, "Oh, by the way, I didn't get a chance to do this. So I need you to order blah, blah, blah." And I said, "It's another thing you want me to do?" Right there at the nurse's station. I said that. I said, "Oh my God." I said, "Would you please excuse me?" And I went into the nurse's lounge and I pictured that room with one chair in it. And I said, "God, I know what happened. In the morning, everything was fine. I knew what I was going to do. But when I get into work and things change, I threw you off the chair and I jumped out the chair and I started running and managing the show. And I started giving attitude to the night nurse. It's not her fault. And then I was going to give attitude to all the nurses. God, what I do know is that I'm here at work today and it's just me and registry nurses, I know that you can guide me in a way that will guide your kids who are nurses to be able to take proper care of your kids who are patients. So all I need to do is put you back on the chair and be willing to do whatever you want me to do today. And I know you'll guide me to give the best possible care to every patient." And so I went back to the nurse's station. And when I walked to the nurse's station, everyone got quiet again. And I said, I just found out my evil twin was just here. I got rid of her. But if anyone sees that evil twin back again, please let me know. I don't think she'll come back the rest of this shift, but I think we're fine now. And anyone that she harmed, please forgive me so that it won't happen again. And everyone kind of laughed and we just were able to go on. And it was a done deal. And step 11 isn't such a, people seem to think step 11 is so hard. I think because I've learned to always try to keep God present with me and to know that I'm here as God's employee, not the employer. Living in prayer and meditation is a whole lot easier for me. I can always go to God. And I can feel even free to cry with God. About 10 years ago, I had breast cancer and had a lumpectomy. And 2 days later, I got a call from the doctor and I thought, isn't that nice, calling me to see how I'm doing? That wasn't what he was calling about. He was calling to tell me that I had more cancer than what was determined and that I needed either another lumpectomy and chemo. I said, or a mastectomy. He said, yeah, or a complete mastectomy. And I said, okay, well, let's go with the mastectomy. Well, it was scheduled up at the hospital that I worked in. And there's really no secrets when you work at the same hospital. People get to know, Kay's going in and she's going to have a mastectomy. And but I just kind of continued to work until it was time to have my mastectomy. So the morning of my surgery, I put on a pretty good front, but I was really pretty disappointed because I had finally healed from my marriage enough that I thought I could date. But knowing I was going to have a mastectomy, I just knew I wasn't going to be dating anymore. And so I went in the shower and I started putting the special soap that you have to use before the surgery. And all of a sudden, I just went on my knees and sobbed. I don't think I sobbed that much even through my divorce, and sobbed and sobbed and sobbed. And all of a sudden, I felt overwhelmed. I was just filled, overwhelmed with God, saying, you know, you're not going through this alone. Yeah, you're going to have to go through it, but no harm is going to come to you. Everything will be fine. And you'll see I'm going to be there with you. And I felt such a sense of relief that I was able to go in and have the surgery. It was pretty involved in this surgery, was almost 9 hours. So they put me in the intensive care unit overnight, and nobody who knew me wanted to take care of me. And so I got a registry nurse, and she said, my name is Unique, and I'll be your nurse today. And I said, what? You know, just coming out of anesthesia. My name is Unique. And I said, oh, I get it. You're unique. I'm just a patient here. And she said, yeah, to me, that was from God saying, you're just a patient here, kid. You're fine. The next day, when they brought me out to the med surg floor, I was there and I looked around at that and I thought, well, okay, I think you're here with me, but you know, I think you are. And all of a sudden, this gal from India, who was the nursing assistant, comes in and she says, hello, how are you? My name is Surrender. And I said, excuse me? And she said, my name is Surrender. And I said, oh my God, you have no idea how long I've been looking for you. She said, oh my God, do you have a call light? Do you have everything? I said, no. I said, it's just wonderful. So I wasn't unique, and I had Surrender right there with me. And to me, it was the God as I understand God. You see, my sponsor said that molecule of God that we have is unique because I have a God that needs to understand that I'm a woman, I'm a grandmother, I am divorced, I'm a retired nurse. He said, so your relationship with your God is as a woman. And he said, my relationship with God is as a man. And he said, so we really do have made to order higher powers that work for us. That's why it is your God. And my God was with me throughout that. And I have to tell you, the first week back to work, I got a call from the director of a pharmacy. She said, can I talk to you? And I said, sure. She said, can you come to my office? And I said, sure. I'm thinking, oh boy, something bad happened. I was working in quality at the time, and I thought, oh, some bad med error happened. And she came in. I sat down, and she got up. She closed the door. I need to talk to you. And I said, okay. I have breast cancer, and I'm going to have a mastectomy. Walk me through it. And I thought, wow, God, you said you were going to use me for this. And so it really does. It works that way in my life. And so I know no matter what I go through, I can use it to help other people. And then in step 12, I just have to share something that my sponsor talked about with step 12. He said the 12 steps in application is like the building of a warm, safe cocoon. Step 1 goes to step 2. Step 2 goes to step 3. Step 3 goes to step 4. So we're building a cocoon where I can be nourished and protected and morphed into the being that God always wanted me to be. Not just a new and improved caterpillar, but a butterfly who brings nourishment, life, and love into all of his creation, ever growing our flying circles to encompass the world. And that to me is step 12. Thank you very much for asking me to share. And I think it's about time, right?